Please stand as you're able. Happy are those who stand in awe of the Lord, who greatly delight in his commandments. Their descendants will be mighty in the land. Please be seated. Friends, my name is Jim Tenford, and on behalf of Terry's family, I welcome you to our time of remembering and celebrating the life of Terry. The reading we just heard is from Psalm 112, and it speaks of who Terry was. He was a person of great faith and love for his church, but beyond this, he was through and through a teacher. So yes, he stood in awe of all that God is doing, but he also helped that his descendants, his family, his friends, his students, the students of his students, all might be mighty in the land, or to use more contemporary language, successful in life. Terry's life is worthy of great celebration, and so thank you all for being here. It is good that you are here because this is also a time that holds some sadness. You know, it's like one of Terry and Sheila's great gatherings that they hosted. It was always wonderful. It was always a gift. And we always wish they could go on, but in the end, all good things must come to an end. And so we are left with a mix of sadness and satisfaction. And so today we're going to follow in Terry's footsteps. We are going to share some very good stories. We're going to offer each other care, and then later we will spend time visiting over a bite to eat. And you are all invited to stay and share in some food. I'll lead you out of the service, out this back way, around the office, and then into this room. And then you can come back in here with a cup of tea or coffee, turn chairs around, make yourselves at home. You're amongst friends and family. Please join me in prayer. Holy One, we gather to be in awe of all you are doing. The beauty of your creation is an invitation to fill life with curiosity and learning. The community of your children is an invitation to build relationships and fill our days with love and purpose. As we celebrate Terry's life, be with all who gather, in person and online. Remind us that life is to be treasured, that grief is often a measure of how much we've been blessed, and that death does not have the final word. We live on with you in the hearts and minds of all we touch. Amen. Now, Terry and I had a similarity. We were both United Church lifers. We have both spent our lives in this church, proud of this church, active in this church, letting it just be a part of everything that we do. And so Terry had a few requests for today that really highlight who he was and how much he loved his church. And we'll start off by saying together a new creed. Please join me. We are not alone. We live in God's world. We believe in God, who has created and is creating, who has come in Jesus, the Word made flesh, to reconcile and make new, who works in us and others by the Spirit. We trust in God. We are called to be the church, to celebrate God's presence, to live with respect in creation, to love and serve others, to seek justice and resist evil, to proclaim Jesus crucified and risen, our judge and our hope. In life, in death, in life beyond death, God is with us. We are not alone. Thanks be to God. Our opening hymn today is Holy, Holy, Holy.
Holy, holy, holy.
to invite Shirley and Greg to come forward to share some stories.
In 1968, Dr. Terence McKague joined the Department of Educational Administration at the University of Saskatchewan. 3 years later, looking for a hands-on experience in education, Terry joined the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation as a member of the senior admin staff. In 1973, he moved to the Federation's Regina office, where he worked until his retirement. He assisted teachers in the southeast of the province with both professional and welfare issues.
Memorable for Sheila was the challenge of being a single parent Thursday, Friday, and Saturday weekly, while Terry was away working when teachers were available.
Memorable for Terry was guiding the Regina Public School Teachers Association through local negotiations and job action to achieve preparation time for all teachers, an achievement that rippled across the province.
The Ministry of Education seconded Terry to be project coordinator for a review of curriculum and instruction. This was to ensure that our students were prepared for the 21st century. In 1984, Directions, the final report on the broad public, academic, and education sector consultations, prioritized student-centered education. In 1997, Terry identified the great impact of the commitment to collaborate in decision-making on the evolution of public education when accepting the Administrator of the Decade Award from the Council for Education Administrators.
Terry was a knowledgeable, articulate educator who worked with a global perspective. He valued opportunities to work internationally and to facilitate teachers sharing with teachers, including the 1986 Assembly of World Teachers held here in Regina. Other highlights include a 1978 teacher conference in Grenada and a 1989 workshop for the Zambian Teachers Union.
I came into Terry's story as an STF colleague in 1988. A primary teacher, new to the STF male-dominated admin staff. A Christmas cactus cutting, a pair of ankle socks with hearts, and candy appeared in my office, following a few of Terry's many trips to Saskatoon. I appreciated his kindness and humor, as well as Terry's professionalism. Terry listened respectfully when he spoke. Staff listened. We knew his contribution would be thoughtful and significant. I followed Terry as STF liaison for the Saskatchewan Drama and the Music Educators Associations. Terry had a flair for, as well as an interest in the dramatic. In passing one day, he asked me, "Why don't you do something useful with your sabbatical? Like get a doctorate?" It seems fitting to wear my scholar robe today. Terry may not have pounded nails well, but he was ready for any opportunity. I witnessed this dignified, level-headed gentleman dance on a table. On our first trip, I was awed and entertained by the storage spaces that Terry found in his vehicle for cheesies, chips, popcorn, and other non-nutritious snacks. In jest on his retirement, the STF staff charged him with violation of the Canada Food Guide.
Terry taught 2 of my postgraduate classes. Teachers understand how meaningful accolades are from our students and peers. A most prized highlight for Terry occurred in 1989. Many former students and teachers successfully supported his election as Chancellor for the University of Regina.
In his acceptance, Terry first acknowledged the presence of his niece. I don't know if you're here or not. Looking down at his resplendent gown, he said, "She'll be happy to know she doesn't have to look for a Halloween costume this year."
Terry retired from the Federation in 1994 after 23 years of exemplary service. The 1996 citation awarding him STF honorary life membership noted that Terry's Chancellor robes became him very well.
The citation continued, and I quote, "Terry McKague has graced the stage of education in our province with wit, the courage of his own vision, and an insight born of intelligence, compassion, and experience."
Terry did not stop his involvement with teachers upon his retirement. He became active with the Superannuated Teachers of Saskatchewan, locally and provincially, and became president and an honorary life member of both.
Terry's contribution to education were enormous over his career. His messages act from knowledge and thought. Meet your responsibilities well. Be kind, and we do better together. Sheila, family, and others, may memories of Terry robe each of you in blessings.
Thank you very much for that. You may not be surprised if you knew Terry, and I'm going to assume that you did. You may not be surprised that Terry had quite a hand in the planning of today's service. And this is why, as I said earlier, we have some elements of the United Church in our service, and one of those is a tradition that actually goes back far, far farther from the United Church than all the way back to the beginnings of the Christian church. One of our oldest traditions written about in the Bible is the passing of the peace. Now, in good United Church tradition, what you do is you go around and you make sure that you shake the hand of every single person that's in the building. I don't recommend that today, but I do invite you to pass the peace of Christ to your neighbors. May the peace of Christ be with you all. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Peace be with you.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Mike McKague and this is my sister Meredith. We're here to say a few words about our dad. I want to thank everyone we want to thank, and Sheila would like to thank everyone for coming, especially those who've traveled from out of town. It's very overwhelming and satisfying to see such a full church. I've been to a few handfuls of funeral services, and at every one I'm gobsmacked that children can get up and speak about a parent. Several decades ago, I decided that I was never going to do this. But I've been told I have a sympathetic audience, and so here we are. I'm also glad Meredith is standing here with me, and together we stand a better chance of getting through this. I think most of you are aware that my dad loved socializing. He loved a good party. It's funny to think about how much planning he actually did for this party in particular. He was, in a strange way, looking forward to this being a success. Whether at work or at socializing, Dad was always a snappy dresser. I remember growing up, annually he would go and buy a new suit every year. And he would either visit Growth Barber here in Regina or Elwood Flynn up in Saskatoon. He had hundreds of ties. My tie here is one of his old ones. It's got flowers on it and it's very bright for those people in the back who can't see. The first time I wore this tie was actually for my Uncle Ormond's funeral, and we were asked to wear something bright and beautiful to the funeral to celebrate a bright, beautiful life. Twice this past year, I've worn this tie for people there's some people in this room who have suffered great loss, and I've worn this tie twice in this past year, and I want to thank them for coming down and share them in supporting us today. My dad actually attended at least 2 parties in the last month of his life. He traveled to Saskatoon for the annual Lettingham Christmas party that my aunt and uncle Rob and Val, who are here, would host at their house every year. It was on December 6th. And in fact, his last social event was a supper at a neighbor's house in their condo building on December 22nd, which was less than 3 weeks ago. When he was out socializing, there would usually be a story. Dad loved to tell stories, to teach, to preach, and to entertain. He was a very good speechwriter. I always thought he should actually ghostwrite speeches for any political party that wanted him to speak. And anytime I've had to MC or speak in an event, I would always consult Dad on the formatting, flow, and when to put in the jokes. In fact, this is the first time I'm speaking to a group without his advice. Dad would speak anywhere and often, at work events with the STF, or giving lay sermons in the summertime at the United Church in Gray, Saskatchewan, or here at Sunset Harmony Church as well. Of course, he got to speak lots. Traditionally, chancellors at a convocation wouldn't actually speak, but he somehow convinced the university to let him give speeches at convocation. So he was happy about that. He would also regale stories at his weekly Thursday coffee group of retired teachers and at the condo happy hour on Friday afternoons. In the last decade of his life, much like this eulogy, his stories became longer and more meandering than necessary. This is a tradition that my children say I carry on already. I'm going to tell you about one story. About 3-ish years ago, the mother of all stories came out. How many of you have heard the legend of the Carmichael Church chairs? I think if John and Marilyn Holden are here, I'm sure they've heard parts of it. The telling of this story began in early August 2022 and didn't end till after Labor Day. I started hearing the story one weekend when I was out at Catupwa Lake with the family, and Terry started the story there, and it continued on the next weekend when I was visiting here in Regina for work. I'm confident many of you heard parts of it. The funny thing about Dad's epic tales was his assumption that we inherently knew who that long-lost McKague cousin he was talking about was, or we could understand even what decade the story took place. Anyway, there's not nearly enough time to tell the whole Carmichael Chairs story right now. Or maybe there is. Is anyone here in a rush? Okay, I'm going to tell it really quick, okay? Because everyone here came for a story. Okay, so I'm going to give it in bullet points as opposed to half-hour chunks. First of all, Dad went to Carmichael Church as a youth. And then you'd have the story about where the church was, how his involvement in the choir, what his mother did there, lots. Carmichael Church closed down. I have no idea when. Carmichael Church had some really big, regal chairs. Now imagine a big, long description of wooden chairs, thrones, kind of things. The University of Regina always had to rent regal chairs at convocation. And so they'd have to explain Dad would explain the cost, where they came from. I think they were rented from the Center of the Arts, but then you had to transport them from the Center of the Arts to the, anyway, it was very challenging. And then one day, Carmichael Church auctioned off the chairs. But Dad was out of town when this happened. And so this is, and there was a long story about where he was out of town, what they were doing, and how he could miss this thing. Anyway, a doctor bought the chairs, these giant regal chairs, for his new house that was getting built. So this is the sad part of the story. Then, undaunted, a hero emerges in the story. And the chairs were too ridiculously large to be in anyone's house, even a doctor's. So Dad somehow convinced the auction house to give him the name of the buyer. He contacted okay, not getting into the details. Dad bought the chairs from the doctor. And then there was a long story about how much they cost and how to transport them and whatever. And he donated them to the U of R for their convocation ceremony. So then there's a talk about the charitable tax receipt, but really that wasn't the big thing. It was really to help the ceremony. So convocation, the last bullet point, convocation ceremony is better than ever. And the moral of the story is everyone has a place to sit. Okay, so that's the story. And in fact, I missed some detail because I think there were actually 3 big chairs, or maybe 2 were big and 1 was really, really big, which is the one Dad would get to sit in. And maybe it was an auction. Anyway, I don't know, because by that time, I'm looking at my empty Scotch glass, thinking, when will this story be over? So the question is, when did this happen? Did anyone catch that in the story? It happened in 1994, this story, okay? And he's telling the story in 2022. So, Dad, why are you telling me this story now? I don't know, he said. And Sheila yells in from the kitchen, he's been telling the story for 3 weeks. Anyway, we encouraged Dad in his final years to write a memoir of his stories and his life, and it would have filled the book. But the best he could do was create our annual Christmas letter, which is nicely in a file at home, all the copies, which is basically the history of his life and our lives as a family together, which is lovely. In the final days, rather than writing, though, he preferred to focus his energy while he was in the condo on completing 5 or 6 crosswords every single day. So, okay, you're up.
Hard to follow that, Mike. We've heard how Dad gave generously, both of his time professionally and socially. I'm going to speak now about how he prioritized family, as well as some of his other memorable qualities. Dad traveled widely across southern Saskatchewan in his role with the STF in a series of very large station wagons with faux wood paneling down the sides. And each of them had a big, what we called, way back. And throughout our childhood, Mike and I were lucky enough to take multiple trips through Canada and the US, in those station wagons with Dad at the wheel. We frequently camped, Mike and me in the back on a mattress, and Mom and Dad in a little orange pup tent. Often we'd wake up in the morning with the car already having driven 100 miles down the road. This was before metric and seatbelts. For a special treat, we sometimes got to have breakfast at McDonald's. It was an amazing way to spend our summers as kids, adventuring through national parks with our parents and playing Lego in the way back. I'm not sure if we were aware at the time what a wonderful education and experience we were having. When Mom returned to teaching when I started grade 1, Dad stepped up his contributions at home. As we got older, Mike and I, as well as Dad, were each responsible for one dinner a week. Dad was off work on Mondays, theoretically, and so Monday was his night for preparing dinner. Now, preparing dinner on Dad's night meant going to Boston Pizza for the all-you-can-eat buffet. We really liked Dad's dinner nights. When Mike and I were in high school, Dad spent a lot of time watching us play water polo, sitting high up in the hot, humid bleachers with Mom at the Lawson Aquatic Center. As a grandfather, he spent equally uncomfortable times at a chilly hockey rink or the speed skating oval, slapping mosquitoes at a soccer game, or hauling himself up into the bleachers for a swim meet or a basketball game. In recent years, he brought his own cushion. He loved and was very proud of Mike and me, as well as our children and spouses. Throughout his working life and in retirement, he's prioritized spending time with family. He engaged in events of Mom's large extended family, the Lettinghams, many of whom are here today. He valued time with his own extended family, some of whom are also here today. He loved going on family trips to the lake, the mountains, or occasionally a special beach holiday in Mexico. And in advance, he would spend many weeks planning games and activities for the grandchildren. Sometimes these were trivia or quiz games, often including some biblical information, which he intended to help enhance the children's religious education, which he felt was a bit lacking. Trivia games also often included key events from Dad's own life. This year, for the holidays, Dad and Mom had planned, a special trip for all of us to Waskesiu. Unfortunately, close to the time, he realized he couldn't come. However, those people who were still able to go on the trip enjoyed a new diversion called the sock game, which he relished planning for weeks in advance. I understand this game was engaged in very competitively and gratefully by everyone present, the final trip activity that Dad had planned with such anticipation. Some of those who are here today may not be aware that we almost didn't have all those years of retirement with Dad. When he was 55, right after he retired, he drove my Uncle Ormond from Katepwa Lake back to Toronto, stopping to visit me in Kingston en route. Driving back across Canada to get home, he drove with the window unrolled the whole time, as he was feeling quite short of breath and had chest tightness. When he returned to Regina, he got checked by his doctor and was told he had life-threatening cardiac disease and required urgent surgery. That surgery happened right around this time of year, 31 years ago. So thanks to modern medicine, we had 3 more wonderful decades with Dad enjoying time together as a family. Dad was both a gentleman and he was also a gentle man. This particularly was reflected in the care he provided for his brother Ormond during Ormond's final years. Ormond was ill for quite a time with various health issues, including terminal cancer, and unable to leave his apartment. During that time, with support from Mum, Dad was a tender caregiver for Ormond, buying his groceries, including his martini ingredients, cleaning his apartment, helping him do laundry, and eventually personal care. Ormond was able to stay in the apartment he loved due to Dad's steadfast support. Dad was kind to many, many other people beyond his family members, of course, and I know his kindness touched some of you in the room. When I think of Dad, I think of a few other qualities that represent him. His faith, obviously. It was a quiet faith, but important to him, and it brought him joy to share his ideas about spirituality and service in community churches in Saskatchewan. Along with his faith, he deeply valued education, music and the arts, equity, democratic institutions. His volunteer activities with many organizations and his philanthropy reflect those values. He was extremely sentimental. And although he was a wonderful public speaker, as Mike mentioned, occasionally his sentimentality got the better of him. When I was an exchange student for a year in New Zealand, Dad gave a speech at the Rotary Club, who were hosting me. It was a warm, humorous speech, but towards the end, when he was talking about his gratitude for the kindness of my hosts, he broke down and shed some tears. Of course, Mum, his trusty partner, hopped up and was able to complete for him what he intended to say. Dad could be quite audacious, some might say incorrigible. He sometimes thought he could get away with saying things that were maybe pushing the envelope a bit. He would drop broad hints when he wanted to get invited over to somebody's house or to a particular social event. It usually panned out. He had a wonderful dry sense of humor. Even in the last few days of his life, literally on his deathbed, he cracked a few jokes that brought smiles to our faces, punctuated by expressive hand gestures with his long piano player hands. Among Dad's few faults was that he really did not like being sick. So we're particularly grateful that his last illness was brief and that he could be at home, where he took his final breaths while lying next to Mum in the condo that they loved. Dad liked to say he was a simple man, but he did appreciate a bit of grandeur, some pomp and ceremony. One of my good friends texted me that he would be looking down on this memorial to count the number in attendance and to check for dignitaries. He really wanted one of his grandchildren to play the violin at his funeral. And even in the last few months, he encouraged them to continue to hurry up and learn that instrument. He also thought it would be quite nice to have a pipe organ at the funeral, since years ago he played the pipe organ at Knox in Saskatoon. While it wasn't feasible to install one here at Harmony Church in time for today's service, we know he would have been deeply moved and grateful for the beautiful music shared by Shirley, Jen, and the choir. Thank you so much.
As mentioned earlier, Dad was nominated by a teacher, Elaine Yeomans, to become Chancellor at the University of Regina. He had little hope of being elected as the university itself had nominated W.F. Johnson, who had just wrapped up his tenure as the 16th Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. W.F. Johnson was more famous, more qualified, and had more powerful friends. However, what W.F. Johnson and the U of R didn't know was that for years, Dad had secretly been teaching summer grad courses in their own College of Education to basically every teacher leader in southern Saskatchewan. And like a tsunami rising from Shaunavon to Melville, the alumni teachers of the U of R united, voted, and got their man elected. Twice, in fact. Another heroic tale. Dad loved being the Chancellor at U of R. He loved the academy of it all, and to be honest, he loved being at the center of it all. He loved the formalities of the event and the opportunities to rub shoulders with incredible individuals, other chancellors, scholars, politicians, and leaders. Dad was especially enamored, this is a secret, he was especially enamored with smart, powerful, successful women. Okay, and I have some slides. We're going to have a little lesson here. So I'll go through this quickly, but this is It's just setting up something special, don't worry. This is Verda Petrie, who is a force of education in Regina, a future chancellor of the U of R, and my grade 12 calculus teacher. The next slide is Sylvia Fedoric. She's receiving an honorary degree. She started in a one-room school when she was going to school to become a world-renowned physicist. Basically invented cobalt-60 cancer treatment, was the head of the SAS Cancer Center, was the first female on the Atomic Energy Board of Canada, was the 17th Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan in the Canadian Curling Hall of Fame and the Canadian Medical Hall of Fame. Next slide is Flora MacDonald, receiving another honorary degree, Canada's first female foreign minister, MP for nearly 2 decades. She and Ken Taylor chiefly responsible for rescuing 6 American citizens during when the Iranian government was toppled, I think in 1979. Wow. Next slide is Linda Haverstock. Linda Haverstock is an amazing woman. She had an unplanned pregnancy in high school and then never stopped after that. She stopped school and then went on to have a PhD, become the first female leader of a political party in Saskatchewan. In 1995, the Liberals received 35% of the popular vote, which is an all-time high, and she became the 19th Lieutenant Governor of this province and is a lifelong friend of our Uncle Ormond. Just as a side note, if you were betting anything in the funeral service of how many times I'd say Lieutenant Governor today, the over-under was 2.5, and we went over. So, and then the next slide is, do you know who this is? That's Roberta Bondar. She received an honorary degree in 1991, was the first Canadian female astronaut, has a PhD and an MD, and is in the Canadian Medical Hall of Fame. So it must be pretty easy to get into the Hall of Fame. Anyway, the reason Roberta's slide is up there is because on Christmas Day, my dad, so Meredith and I went down on Christmas Day, and that was the last Terry McKague story that Dad ever told me, and I'll share it with you. It seemed very personal. Again, you didn't know the dates. Anyway, it's a very personal story and it involved Ms. Bondar.
Dr. Bondar.
Dr. Bondar, sorry. Yeah. Dad expressed his disappointment that Roberta failed to contact him when she had been back in Regina in November in 2025. And he was disappointed. He said this in all his seriousness, and I had assumed that since 1991, where she received her honorary degree, that Dad had continued a relationship with her. Maybe even sending the famous Christmas letter. So Dad, when was the last time you spoke with Roberta? 1991. And that was the story. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for that. I also remember Dad being really excited anytime English royalty was in the province. I have a vague memory of as a child being dragged to some parade on Albert Street to catch a glimpse of Prince Philip going by in a convertible. But being the Chancellor afforded Dad the opportunity to actually meet Princess Anne. And there's actually, I saw last night a better photo where he's actually like speaking with her. And then, height of heights, next slide, to meet Queen Elizabeth. Now this photo, Terry photoshopped of himself.
I think we photoshopped
to go in the 1995 Christmas letter. However, twice in real life, Terry has been in the same room with the Queen. Sheila volunteers at Government House, and there is a great photo of him, of the two of them in the receiving line with the Queen approaching. And I bet he was so excited that he didn't know whether to bow or to curtsy. Anyway, all these slides that we've seen are of smart, accomplished, powerful women. Next slide. and so is this woman. This is his true queen. An amazing, smart, accomplished, and powerful woman. And to get to spend nearly 65 years together was the greatest blessing of Dad's life. I should probably share a story here, but I don't think I can make it through the telling. I do want to tell you that it was a great partnership. It was a fantastic example of how to have a successful marriage. It involved a lot of patience, and Meredith and I are both lucky to have married incredibly patient spouses in Juliet and Richard. Terry and Sheila, they both worked incredibly hard in their own careers, and they both raised us. They loved entertaining and hosting a party or dinner. They traveled to 6 continents together. Dad visited 68 countries in his lifetime. 3 times, most recently in 2023, Terry and Sheila took our families to Mexico for a trip. In 2023 was the last trip to Mexico. It was at Christmas 2023, so 2 years ago. It was a great trip. Dad, even though he was frail, he managed really well. He could push his walker from his room to the Palapa bar by the beach, and he found the French fry buffet there regularly. His grandkids are old enough to remember this trip, which is wonderful. It was his last airplane ride and his last time out of the country. Dad respected and deeply appreciated Mom for all her capabilities and activities. She still volunteers voraciously, some weeks putting in full-time hours for the organizations she supports. Her kindness and commitment to community shines through her every day. And of course, her kindness was also directed at Dad too. She cared for Dad as he slowed down in the last years, and in his final weeks, she behaved like an angel. Dad's death was inevitable, but came sooner and more quickly than we expected. Dad had the privilege of passing at home, and Sheila was right there at the end. The first time I heard my dad speak was at Sheila's dad's funeral. I was 15 years old. He gave the eulogy for Robert Lettingham, his father-in-law. He delivered a beautiful tribute to my grandfather. He honored him greatly. His voice was strong and clear and steady throughout Knox United Church in Saskatoon. His voice held on to the very last line before it quavered. And I'll finish this eulogy the same way my dad did 40 years ago. So Dad, we love you, and Meredith and I are so lucky that we were your children. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you gently in the palm of his hand.
Thank you so much. And thank you for coming clean on that picture with the Queen. I was looking at that thinking, that's Photoshop. So thanks for your honesty. I'd like to invite Ava to come forward to share a poem.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ava. I'm one of the many Saskatoon grandchildren. I maybe greeted you at the door as we were passing through, but it's lovely to see all of your faces. We're so grateful that everyone is here, and there's an incredible showing. I was part of the people trying to get more chairs in, so we're so grateful that the house is so packed. So Grandpa worked for 3 years at Martin Collegiate in the 60s before beginning his PhD. He taught high school English, and during that time and throughout his life, his love for the English language and for teaching poetry was so strong. So if you'd like to turn through your programs, I'm going to read a poem. It should be on the page there. This comes from a book of good verse. It's written by Archibald Lampman. If you're wanting to see Grandpa's thoughts on the poem, they're written in the margins, if you can read his handwriting. So we'll see. But this poem is called There is a Beauty at the Goal of Life. There is a beauty at the goal of life, a beauty growing since the world began, through every age and race, through lapse and strife, till the great human soul complete her span. Beneath the waves of storm that lash and burn, the currents of blind passion that appall, to listen and keep watch till we discern the tide of sovereign truth that guides it all. So to address our spirits to the height, and so attune them to the valiant whole, that the great light be clearer for our light, and the great soul the stronger for our soul. To have done this is to have lived, though fame, remember us with no familiar name. Thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it.
I'd like to invite Isabel to come forward to share our scripture reading for today.
Hi everybody, I'm Isabel. I'm another one of the grandchildren, and I was at the other door, so I probably saw about half of you come in. I will be reading verses 1 through 8 of chapter 3 from the Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. Thank you.
I know the passage that we just heard Isabel read is often included in events like this, but I'm always just a little bit surprised when families suggest this reading for an event like this. Not that I object. I love the entire book of Ecclesiastes, and I would be thrilled if this is read at my funeral when in probably 60 or 70 years. I think it's a surprising choice for funerals because these are times when we highlight a person's accomplishments and talk about their very, very best qualities. But this reading in all of Ecclesiastes is actually almost harsh in its honest pragmatism. It tells us that there are no guarantees in life. Live a life of honesty and goodness, and people might still cheat you. Spread love as much as you possibly can, and there may still be a time for hate. God wants us all to live in peace, but just because of the reality of human nature, it seems there will always be a time for war. Give all your family the love and the nourishment that they will ever need. And there may still not be anybody to play violin at your funeral. The reason I love this passage, and the reason I think it's perfect for a day today when we honor Terry, is that it's a reminder that when we live our lives, we don't do so the way we do. We don't serve our communities the way we do because of some guaranteed reward, but simply because it's what we should do. We don't do what we do because we're successful. We do what we do simply because it's right. Terry filled his life with so many efforts that had no guarantees. Isn't this what teaching is? You can spend your career teaching, trying to impart wisdom and knowledge. You can nurture curiosity and a love for learning. But in the end, you can lead a student to school, but you can't make him think. Terry loved and valued his family, and along with Sheila, raised 2 children in hopes that they would grow to be happy and healthy. We heard stories about how Terry and Sheila went to great effort to fill Meredith's and Michael's lives with love and learning and adventure. But in the end, there's still no guarantee. Children grow to be the people that they grow to be, out of the control of even the best parents. Out of control because they are the best parents. Even with Terry's life of faith, he loved his God and he tried to chart his life according to the Gospels. But this is faith. It's not knowledge. In the end, We can carry on as much faith and goodness as we can, but there's still no guarantees. At some point, it might just come down to what the choir was singing earlier. In the end, even if things aren't working out, even if things are going wrong, how can we keep from singing? There are so very few guarantees in life. It is just simply not an equation of do this and end up with that. But did Terry receive a reward for his efforts? Well, he certainly did. Your presence here shows how much value Terry's life held in the world. Your presence here is an honor to who he was. Children who have indeed honored his life with who they are. They have turned into wonderful people who are now raising another generation of people who will live on the legacy of who Terry was. They even turned out to be great public speakers. He had amazing success at work. And even there, he didn't do it for the accolades. He didn't turn them down. But he had such tremendous success. And no, taking a turn to wash the bathroom once a week is not going to guarantee a happy marriage. But Terry and Sheila had 62 absolutely wonderful years. But I have to speak personally here. What I will always remember about Terry was not his accomplishments, but his character. In conversations after church or going to lunch with a mutual friend of ours, George, it was always clear that I was speaking with someone of great depth and wisdom. But from those conversations, what always stayed with me is that I had been in the company of someone who was truly kind and generous. To the end, an absolute gentleman. Please join me in prayer. Creating and recreating God, we give you thanks for the life of Terry and the gift of his legacy that he leaves us. His talent, his commitment to his family, and his service to his community inspire us. As we move through this time of farewell, may we be comforted by his memory. May we laugh as we remember his humor. May we hold on to those we love with a little bit more tightness, and may we always be ready to turn any gathering into a celebration of friendship. Lend all who knew Terry the strength to move through the days to come, and may that we shelter in the faith that he shared with so many. We are not alone. We live in God's world. Thanks be to God. Amen. Our final hymn today is "We Shall Go Out with Hope of Resurrection," and I invite you to stay standing after the hymn for our final blessing.
We shall go
the grace of God, we are given life, and through the promises of Christ, we are given new life. May Terry dwell with God forevermore. Amen. And to all you who gathered, I say again these very important words. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm your face, the rains fall softly upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Amen.